I have another book review today, and it's a book that I am fully in love with at the moment. I'm so obsessed with this book. It doesn't come out until October. It's like late October, but I got a proof of it at YALC, and it was my most anticipated book pretty much of this entire year, I think. And I was so excited to finally get a copy of it at YALC. And I read it. I think it was the first book I read, maybe one of the first books I read when I came back. So I am so happy that I loved it so much, because obviously when a book is so anticipated, you want to love it. You don't want to kind of be disappointed by it. So the book is Full Disclosure by Camryn Garrett. This is the proof cover. Obviously it's not like the final cover. And inside is this, and it's just so pretty. So this is basically a book about a girl called Simone, and she's in high school in America, and since birth she's been HIV positive because her mother had HIV and she died. So now Simone lives with her two gay dads, which I just love because that is never something you really see. I can't think of another book I've read that has two gay parents, which is sad really. Like that needs to happen way more often than it does. So I love that in this. And the book kind of just deals with Simone talking about her HIV, and she's kind of getting to the age where she's kind of an older teenager, and she's getting to that point where she's kind of thinking about relationships and sex and things, and she's just like, what do I do if I'm HIV positive? And it's a really interesting story because it's something that I've never really thought of. Like, HIV isn't really one of those things that you kind of imagine what it would be like to live with, especially as a teenager. It's one of those things that I feel like you don't really think of teenagers having it or children having it. It's kind of something that you almost imagine gay men to have. So it's a really interesting kind of perspective to see a teenage girl talking about it. So yeah, that's, anyway, a summary of the story. So I loved so many things about this book. It's a complete 5-star book for me. I just adored it. I think I flew through it in like a couple of days. And I just adore it. To stop me rambling, you may have seen my Heartstopper review. I think I just rambled that whole way through. So to kind of stop me from rambling so much, I actually have some notes this time. This is my reading journal. I haven't talked about it yet because it's new, but I might do a video on it at some point, just letting you know. But I made some notes in here. So let's actually stick to some notes for once, shall we? So I obviously had high expectations when reading this. When it's kind of one of your most anticipated books, you're going to have high expectations for it. And that is always a little bit worrying in case your expectations are so high that they're just not met. That definitely wasn't the case with this. One thing I loved about this is how Simone's friendship group are just so kind of open and sex positive. Like, they just talk about sex and they talk about relationships, and like they have an asexual friend, they have a lesbian friend, and they just talk so much about different sexualities, and it's so cool to read. Like, I love it. I love reading something where these things are discussed just so openly. Like, they just talked about like the weather, and it's just so great to see those kind of conversations between teenagers. Back to Simone having the two gay dads. It's never brought up as being like a weird or unusual thing. Like, I can't recall a single bit in the book where their relationship is brought up by anyone as being like, oh, that's really weird, Simone, you've got two dads. Like, it's set right from the beginning of the book, so you know, and literally nobody talks about it in like a negative way, or even really at all. Like nobody even says, oh, it's so cool that you have two dads. Like it's just so matter of fact, where she's just like, my dad's said this, or you wait till you meet my dad's. It's just so matter of fact, and I just love that so much. I feel like if there are like same-sex couples or parents even in a lot of books, it's part of the plot, so like they're there for a reason for the plot, and that doesn't always have to be the case. So I love it when it's just not part of the plot at all. Like they're just there because they are. Like gay people in real life aren't gay for a particular reason, they just are. So when there's her dads, they just are. Like they're not part of the plot in any way whatsoever. Like the plot wouldn't change if she had like straight parents. And I just love that. That's just so cool. Oh, and the one thing that I wasn't expecting at all, and that I really loved and made me realise, oh my god, this is my book, was the endless theatre references. If you know me, you know I'm a musical theatre geek at the moment. Like this year especially, I've just suddenly become a massive musical theatre nerd. And this is so full of theatre references. So Simone is the director of her school show, and they're doing Rent. So for her, Rent is such a big, important show for her to be directing. She, obviously with HIV, that's a really big thing for her, and it's just so cool to see her kind of like almost reflecting on herself when she's directing this show. But people in the school don't know she has HIV. That's a big thing in this book, is that the people don't know that she has HIV, because in the past bad things happened when the whole school kind of found out that she had it. As you'd expect, because high school students are ridiculously immature when it comes to things like that. So it's all about her kind of trying to come to terms with the fact that she's directing a show about AIDS, and not telling people that she has HIV. It's just so good. I need to stop saying that in my reviews. Like if I love a book in a review, all I say is, oh my god, it's so good. So yeah, there are so many theatre references in this. Like Simone is a proper musical theatre nerd, and her dads love theatre as well, and she kind of like drags her friends into theatre discussions. And then the boy that she fancies in this, she also kind of like keeps trying to introduce him to loads of new shows, and he just goes along with it, and he's so great. Like he watches so many of these shows and feeds back to her on what he thought of them, and I just love it. It's so cool. So reading all of the theatre references in this was just, it made me kind of, it just cemented that thing where I was just like, this is my book. I love this book so much. If you want a book that has tons of LGBT characters, you can probably almost anyone can recognise themselves in at least one of these characters. If you love a book that is completely sex positive and with great friends who kind of overcome so many hurdles and things, then you really need to read this. If you love theatre references, you need to read this. It's quite short. I think this copy is like 290 pages, so it's quite short. It's quite a quick read. So I think it would be like a perfect holiday read, or like if you just need to pick something up on a weekend, or if you're in a reading slump, I think this would be a perfect one. I picked this up when I wasn't reading a lot, and this kind of like shot me straight back into reading, and now I'm like obsessed with it again. So yeah, I just recommend it to absolutely everyone. You need to read this. So if you've read Full Disclosure, let me know what you think. If you want to read it, then I'll put a link in the description to the Goodreads page so you can add it to your list in Goodreads. Please do. This comes out on 29th of October, I think. It's late October, so not long now. I am so excited for this to come out, just so I can start recommending it to everyone I know. I feel like this is the kind of book that I'm probably going to buy as like Christmas presents, birthday presents, anything. So yeah, there you go. If you want more book reviews like this, then subscribe to the channel below, and I'll be back soon. Bye!